Hope you had a good discussion on cost savings and some ideas about how to be more efficient. So we've gone through 3 of the priorities, or in our case the fruit. So it's most vulnerable children, it's about the sector focus and the quality and the impact of our work in those sectors. And then we talked a bit about funding and the need for quality but also sustainable funding. And then now we're going to look at the next 2 fruit. One of them is around collaborating and advocating so we can reach more people and more of the most vulnerable children. You might remember one of the concerns we had when we were looking at the need for change was that we needed to have an impact on more children. We'd committed to 1.2 million children reached, and we are still nowhere near that number. And the only way to have that broader impact is to really look at how do you get that breadth and look at different ways to do that. And a lot of it requires a sort of collaboration with other partners. So one of the good examples, I think, of how we have a greater reach is the consortiums that we're working in. So TB covers the whole country. We're not doing all the work. In fact, it's not our program, it's the Department of Health's program. But we're working with a broad range of people for greater impact. And that collaboration with others and not trying to do it on your own is really critical. Another example is that it takes a world to end violence against children. And in our case, it takes you and me to end violence against children in Papua New Guinea. Now, that's aimed at trying to really pull together and work with our other partners, government, NGOs, the UN, to really find a way to help make significant change in violence against children in this country, which you know is significant, is huge. And it's really impacting whether or not we're actually making a change in the country. And so I'm hoping that part of our ongoing efforts will be in really looking at how do we have more reach in building our partnerships. And so the consortiums is part of that. Education has a consortium that's been really effective in the same way. And then the ITAU and It Takes a World. It will be our focus in the next years ahead. So that's the fruit around collaborating, advocacy. That's really one of the key priorities. So the final fruit, or the final priority for World Vision in our Promise 2030 is around living out our Christian faith with boldness, but also with humility. So what does that mean for us in World Vision PNG? Is to think back on what our core value, one of which is we're Christian, and to ask ourselves, what does God require of us in how we work? And PNG is a Christian country. What makes World Vision unique in the way we are living out our faith in the work that we're doing? Do people look to us and see us as a Christian organisation? And what's different about us than other organisations? Is there any difference? And if there's not, we have to ask ourselves, why is that? So I think there's just some challenges to us to say, what does it mean to be a Christian? And what does God want of us in the work that we're doing? Now, in that context, we also have to remember that in any country, even if it's a Christian country, there'll be people who have no faith. For whatever reason, they've lost faith or they have no faith. And there's people of other faiths here. So while we're Christian, we also believe it's Christian to live in harmony and still respect those of other faiths or no faiths. So that's a challenge for us to keep in mind. And I will go back to what I said earlier when we were talking about core values is, at the end of each week, can you put your hand on your heart and say, the decisions I made this week were based on my values? So what I'd like you to do now is let me summarise the whole tree, Our Promise 2030, and just go through it. So if you think about the tree, what is the tree for Our Promise 2030? Well, it's that we are reaching the fullness of life for all children, especially the most vulnerable children in PNG. So that's the tree, our programs and who we are is totally focused on that ultimate goal of reaching the most vulnerable and life in all its fullness for every child. So to have that happen, to really see that vision, we need a number of components. So we need to be really in touch and keep grounded in our core values. We need to remember we're Christian, child-focused, community-based, and we need to have that change in mindset and behaviours. And so those mindsets and behaviours around unity and trust, we need to keep focused on that. We need to be wise stewards. We need to keep looking outwards, and we need to be timely with our truth-telling and love. So these are all really important to focus on if we really want to meet our goal. And then finally, what are our priorities to make that happen? There's 5 of them. So number 1 is reaching most vulnerable children. Number 2 is having a strong focus on our work and our sectors and really looking at quality and the impact of our work. The third one, that's focusing on our funding and can we be more effective and cost saving, as well as having funding that meets what we want to do and actually is sustainable. So how do we do this long term? And then finally, it's the final 2 are ones around our advocacy and collaborating with others for broader impact. So we can reach more of the most vulnerable children by working with others really intentionally. And then finally, it's remembering we are Christian and being Christian in how we operate. All those combined and all these underlying and supporting pieces, that is what we want to be able to reach our goal. Life in all its fullness for every child in PNG, and especially the most vulnerable children. That's my challenge to you. It's my challenge to myself, to the SMT, and the challenge of World Vision internationally to us, to be able to say this is what we're doing, this is who we are, and this is the progress we're making. So while you're doing projects, you're paid by certain donors, ultimately your World Vision, and World Vision has some core values, it has a vision, and you're all contributing to that vision. So it's been a long session, you've had a lot of information and thinking to do, and it probably feels a little bit overwhelming, but let's work together in unity and trust to reach this goal. And I'm excited for this year. I really am. I think we've come through getting a lot of our systems sorted, and now we can really focus on our programs and on the most vulnerable children in PNG and making a difference. So I'm hoping next year at the same time we'll have a different conversation again. We'll be doing a lot of celebrating of the work. And as you go this year, keep celebrating. And I'll be doing these videos throughout the year on different topics, just so that you in the field in particular are hearing from senior management and that you know what we're talking about and what we're having to think about. So looking forward to your feedback, your information and your thoughts. So you're part of the team, and every team member has a perspective that we need to hear and listen to. So hope you have a good week wherever you are and a good year, and we'll be in touch again.